The return. The starship Voidbreaker cut through the darkness of space like a blade through silk. Captain Zorak stood on the bridge, his 3 eyes fixed on the blue marble growing larger in the viewing screen. Earth. The forbidden planet. The grave of humanity. 500 years had passed since the Kryn Empire last sent ships to this corner of the galaxy. 500 years since the Great Silence began. The humans had stopped answering calls, stopped trading, stopped existing in any meaningful way. The galaxy had moved on. New powers rose and fell. Wars were fought and won. But Earth remained a mystery, a closed door that no one dared to open. Until now. "Captain, we are approaching orbital insertion," said Lieutenant Vex, the navigation officer. Her silver skin reflected the soft glow of the control panels. "All systems are functioning normally." Zorak nodded slowly. He was old for a Kryn, nearly 2 centuries of service behind him. He had seen many worlds, conquered some, abandoned others. But he had never seen Earth. No living Kryn had. The stories about this planet were whispers passed between officers in quiet moments. Tales of a species that had burned too bright and then vanished. "What do the scanners show?" Zorak asked. Vex's fingers danced across her console. Her expression shifted from professional calm to confusion. "Captain, this cannot be correct. The atmosphere is not only stable, it is thriving. Oxygen levels are higher than our records indicate. The oceans are clean. The forests cover more land than they did 500 years ago." "Impossible," growled Commander Thane from his station. The large warrior's red scales gleamed under the bridge lights. The humans were destroying their world. Pollution, war, climate collapse. They were killing themselves slowly. That is why they went silent. "Maybe they succeeded," suggested Ensign Cree, the youngest member of the crew. Her voice was soft, uncertain. "Maybe they finished the job. Then who cleaned up after them?" Vex challenged. "Captain, I am detecting energy signatures across the planet. Power grids. Active technology. Something down there is alive and operating at an advanced level." Zorak felt something cold settle in his chest. The Kryn Empire had built its power on one simple truth: no species could match their military might, their strategic genius, their willingness to do whatever was necessary to survive. They had outlasted empires that burned like stars. They had crushed rebellions before they could draw breath. They endured because they were practical, cautious, and thorough. But humans had always been different. Humans were chaos wrapped in flesh. They made decisions that defied logic. They fought when they should surrender. They loved when they should hate. They created beauty in the midst of destruction. The Kryn had never understood them, and that lack of understanding had always felt dangerous. "Take us down," Zorak ordered. "Southern continent. What the old records called the Amazon region. We will land in a clearing and establish a perimeter." The Voidbreaker descended through clouds that looked too perfect, too white. The ship broke into clear air, and the crew got their first true look at Earth. What they saw made every officer on the bridge fall silent. The planet below was not dead. It was exploding with life. Forests stretched as far as their enhanced vision could see. Rivers carved silver paths through green landscapes. Mountains rose with peaks covered in snow that sparkled like diamonds. And everywhere, woven through the natural beauty like threads in a tapestry, were structures. But these were not the crumbling ruins of human civilization. These were something else entirely. Towers that seemed to grow from the earth itself, their surfaces covered in living vines and flowering plants. Bridges that spanned valleys with organic curves that looked more like bones than metal. Domed structures that pulsed with soft light, breathing in rhythm with the forests around them. "By the void," Thane whispered. "What happened here?" The ship landed in a clearing beside a massive river. The moment the engines powered down, the crew heard something unexpected: birdsong. The audio sensors picked up thousands of different calls, a symphony of life that should not exist on a planet that was supposed to be silent. Zorak assembled a team of 12. Thane would lead security with 6 soldiers. Vex would handle scientific analysis. Ensign Cree would manage communications. And Zorak himself would observe and make decisions. They wore full environmental suits, even though the scanners said the air was breathable. Trust but verify. That was the Kryn way. The boarding ramp extended, and they stepped onto Earth for the first time in 5 centuries. The air was warm and humid, thick with the smell of flowers and rich soil. The ground beneath their feet was soft, covered in moss that seemed to glow faintly in the shadows. Trees rose around them like pillars holding up the sky. Some were familiar species from the old records. Others were completely new, their bark patterns and leaf structures unlike anything in the Kryn biological database. "Spread out," Thane commanded. "Standard search pattern. Stay in visual contact. Report anything unusual." They moved through the forest carefully. Every Kryn soldier was trained for hostile environments, but this place did not feel hostile. It felt alive in a way that made them all uneasy. It was too healthy, too vibrant, too perfect. Vex stopped beside a tree and ran her scanner along its trunk. "Captain, look at this. The cellular structure shows modification. This tree has been engineered. Not recently, but generations ago. Someone altered its DNA to make it grow stronger, live longer, and produce more oxygen." "The humans?" Kree asked. "Who else?" Vex replied. "But the level of sophistication here is beyond what humans were capable of 500 years ago. They would have needed another century of development at least to achieve this." "Unless they had help," Thane suggested darkly. His weapon was raised, scanning the shadows. They continued deeper into the forest. After an hour of walking, they found the first structure. It rose from the ground like a mushroom, its surface smooth and white with patterns of blue light running across it like veins. Windows dotted the surface, but they were not made of glass. They were openings that seemed to regulate themselves, closing when the wind blew too hard, opening when the air was still. "No signs of recent habitation," one of the soldiers reported. "But the structure is maintained. Automated systems are running." Zorak approached the entrance. There was no door, just an opening that responded to his presence by widening. He stepped inside, and lights activated automatically. The interior was spacious and clean. Furniture made from grown wood rather than cut lumber filled the space. Screens on the walls displayed information in human language, updating in real time with weather patterns, energy consumption, and structural integrity reports. "This building is alive," Vex said with wonder in her voice. She touched the wall, and it responded with a soft pulse of light. "It is a biological structure with technological enhancements. Architecture and organism merged into one." Kree moved to one of the screens. Her translation device worked quickly. "Captain, this is a monitoring station. It tracks the health of the forest, manages water distribution, and coordinates with hundreds of other stations across the region. The entire forest is being actively managed." "By who?" Thane demanded. "Where are the operators?" As if in answer, the screens all changed at once. They displayed a single message in multiple languages, including Kryn Standard: "Welcome, visitors. You have been expected. Please proceed to coordinates marked on your navigation systems. We have much to discuss." Zorak felt his blood run cold. They had been detected the moment they entered the atmosphere, probably before. Something had been watching them, studying them, waiting to see what they would do. And now it wanted to talk. "Commander Thane, keep the team alert. Vex, verify those coordinates. Kree, try to establish communication. Ask them who they are." Kree typed quickly on her device. The response came immediately: "We are the shepherds. We are the gardeners. We are the inheritors. We are what humanity became when we chose to evolve rather than die. Come to us, and see what 500 years of purpose can achieve." The coordinates led them deeper into the forest, toward a valley that the old maps called the heart of the Amazon. As they traveled, they saw more evidence of the transformation. Animals that should have been extinct thrived in great numbers. Plants that should have been separate species grew together in symbiotic relationships that seemed impossible. The entire ecosystem had been redesigned, optimized, and perfected. After 3 hours of travel, they reached the valley. What they found there drove the breath from Zorak's lungs. A city rose before them, but it was unlike any city the Kryn had ever seen. Towers grew from the ground like trees, their surfaces covered in gardens that cascaded down in waterfalls of green. Walkways connected the structures at multiple levels, each one teeming with life. Streams flowed through the city, their waters crystal clear and filled with fish. And everywhere, moving through this impossible place, were humans. But they were not the humans from the old records. These humans were taller, stronger, more graceful. Their skin showed faint patterns of light beneath the surface, like circuits printed on flesh. Their eyes glowed softly with various colors: blue, green, gold, silver. They moved with purpose and coordination that suggested a level of connection beyond normal communication. At the center of the city stood a tower taller than the others. Its peak disappeared into the clouds. At its base, a gathering had formed. Hundreds of these new humans waited, and at their front stood a woman. She was tall and powerful, with silver hair that moved as if touched by a wind that only she could feel. Her eyes were brilliant gold, and they fixed on Zorak with an intensity that made the ancient captain want to step back. But he held his ground. The woman raised her hand in greeting. When she spoke, her voice carried across the distance without technology, clear and strong. "Welcome to Earth, Captain Zorak of the Kryn Empire. We have waited a long time for your people to find the courage to return. I am Elena, first shepherd of the new humanity. We have much to show you, and many questions to answer. But first, you must understand one thing. She smiled, and in that smile was power that made every Kryn soldier tighten their grip on their weapons. We are not the humans you remember. We are not the species you left behind. We did not die when you expected us to. We transformed. We evolved. We became something your empire has never encountered before. And now that you have returned, you must decide, will you report back and bring war to our world? Or will you listen to what we have learned and join us in protecting this galaxy from the darkness that is coming? Zorak stared at the woman, at the city, at the forest that breathed with purpose. He had come expecting to find ruins and dust. Instead, he had found a civilization that had surpassed death itself. What darkness? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena's smile faded. Her golden eyes grew serious. Come with us, Captain. We will show you why Earth went silent. We will show you what we have been preparing for. And you will understand why we needed 500 years to become ready for what comes next. She turned and walked toward the tower. The crowd parted before her. And despite every instinct screaming at him to return to the ship, to flee this planet and never look back, Zorak followed. His team came with him, their weapons lowered but ready. They were about to discover the truth about humanity's transformation. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The awakening. The tower's entrance welcomed them like a mouth opening to swallow prey. Zorak noticed that his soldiers had spread into defensive positions without being ordered. Good. They sensed the danger here, even if they could not name it. Elena walked ahead with complete confidence, her silver hair flowing behind her like liquid metal. Other humans flanked the Kryn team on both sides, their glowing eyes tracking every movement with unsettling precision. The interior of the tower defied logic. The walls seemed to shift and breathe, their surfaces rippling with patterns of light that moved like thoughts racing through a mind. The floor beneath their feet was soft but firm, responding to each step with gentle support. And the space itself seemed larger inside than the exterior suggested, as if the laws of physics had been politely asked to step aside. You are wondering how this is possible, Elena said without turning around. Your scanners are telling you that this structure should collapse. Your training says that matter cannot behave this way. But you are thinking with old rules, Captain. We wrote new ones. They ascended through the tower, not by stairs or elevators, but by simply rising. The floor beneath them lifted like a platform, carrying them smoothly upward through level after level. Each floor they passed showed different aspects of the new human civilization. Gardens that grew food in impossible abundance. Laboratories where humans worked with equipment that merged biology and technology into seamless unity. Libraries where knowledge floated in the air as holographic displays that responded to thought rather than touch. 500 years ago, Elena began, her voice filling the space around them, humanity stood at the edge of extinction. We had poisoned our world with our own progress. Wars consumed nations. Resources vanished. The climate spiraled toward collapse. We were dying, Captain Zorak, and we knew it. Vex's scanner beeped frantically. She stared at the readings with wide eyes. Captain, I am detecting neural connections between all the humans in this tower. They are linked. Sharing information in real time through some kind of biological network. Elena glanced back, and for the first time, Zorak saw something like sadness in her golden eyes. Not just in this tower, Lieutenant. Across the entire planet. Every human mind connected to every other. We call it the Unity. It was our salvation and our transformation. The platform stopped at a level near the tower's peak. They emerged into a vast chamber with transparent walls that offered a view of the entire valley and the forests beyond. Screens floated in the air, displaying information from across the planet. Weather patterns, energy flows, population distributions, and thousands of other data streams all visible at once. The Unity was not our first choice, Elena continued. She moved to the center of the chamber, and the screens rearranged themselves around her. We tried other solutions first. Clean energy, global cooperation, resource sharing. But we were too divided. Too many nations with too many agendas. We could not agree on how to save ourselves, so we argued and fought while the world burned around us. She gestured, and the screens showed images from Earth's past. Cities crumbling, forests burning, oceans rising to swallow coastlines. Millions of humans fleeing disasters that came one after another like waves against a dying shore. Then came Dr. Sarah Chen and her team. Elena's voice softened with respect. They were neuroscientists, engineers, and philosophers who saw that our division was the root of our destruction. If we could connect our minds, share our knowledge, feel each other's pain and joy as our own, perhaps we could finally work together as one species. Thane stepped forward, his massive form radiating suspicion. You surrendered your individuality. You became a hive mind. That is not evolution, it is extinction by another name. Elena smiled, but there was steel in it. You misunderstand, Commander. We did not lose ourselves. We expanded. Every human retains their personality, their memories, their unique perspective. But now we can also access the thoughts and experiences of others when needed. We are individuals and collective at once. It is like being a single note that can hear the entire symphony. She touched one of the floating screens, and it expanded to fill the space before them. It showed a timeline of Earth's transformation. 500 years compressed into minutes of rapid change. The unity spread slowly at first. People were afraid, as you are now. But as the planet continued to die, more chose to join. And once they did, they understood. They felt the connection, the belonging, the power of shared purpose. Within 50 years, 90% of humanity had joined the unity. The remaining 10% chose isolation, and we respected that choice. Some still live apart from us, in their own communities, living as humans always did. Zorak watched the timeline with growing unease. The moment the unity reached critical mass, everything changed. Cities were redesigned. Forests were restored. The oceans were cleaned. Technology advanced at a pace that should have been impossible. How did you advance so quickly? Vex asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. The leap in technology here represents centuries of development compressed into decades. Because we stopped wasting time, Elena replied simply. Every scientist could instantly share their discoveries with every other scientist. Every engineer could build on the work of thousands of others simultaneously. Problems that would have taken years to solve took days. Breakthroughs that required generations happened in months. The unity did not just connect our minds, it multiplied our capabilities exponentially. Cree had been silent until now, but she finally spoke, her young voice trembling. You said something was coming. You said you needed 500 years to prepare. Prepare for what? Elena's expression darkened. The screens around them changed, showing images from deep space. Stars that flickered and died. Entire star systems going dark. And moving between them, barely visible against the cosmic background, were shapes. Massive shapes that devoured light itself. 40 years after the unity formed, Elena said quietly, we detected them. We call them the Harvesters. They are older than any civilization in this galaxy. They sleep for millions of years, then wake to feed. They consume everything, planets, stars, life, even spacetime itself. They turn matter into energy and energy into themselves. And they are heading toward this sector of the galaxy. The chamber fell absolutely silent. Zorak felt his 3 hearts hammering in his chest. He had served the Kryn Empire for 2 centuries, had seen the fall of species and the birth of new powers, but he had never heard of anything like this. You lie, Thane growled. The Empire's long-range sensors would have detected such a threat. Would they? Elena turned to face the commander directly. Your Empire looks inward, Commander. You focus on control, on maintaining your power over known space. You do not look beyond your borders because you believe nothing exists that could threaten you. But we looked. We had to. Because we had already faced extinction once, and we refused to let it happen again. She gestured, and the screens zoomed in on one of the dark shapes. As it moved, it left behind empty space where stars had been. Entire solar systems erased as if they had never existed. The Harvesters move slowly by cosmic standards, Elena explained. At their current pace, they will reach the edge of known space in 300 years. They will enter Kryn territory in 400. And they will arrive at Earth in 500 years. That is why you went silent, Zorak breathed, understanding finally dawning. You were not dying. You were preparing. Elena nodded. We could not tell the galaxy. Who would believe us? We were a young species, barely capable of interstellar travel. If we had warned the Kryn Empire or the other powers, you would have dismissed us as hysterical children. Or worse, you might have tried to take our research, our technology, our unity for yourselves. So we closed our borders. We stopped all communication. And we dedicated every resource, every mind, every moment of 500 years to one single purpose, survival. The screens changed again, showing Earth's transformation in a new light. Every advancement, every innovation, every seemingly impossible achievement had been driven by this singular goal. The living cities, the regenerated ecosystems, the merger of biology and technology, all of it was designed to create a civilization that could endure the coming darkness. We redesigned our entire world, Elena continued, walking among the floating displays. We made Earth into a fortress that can sustain itself for millennia if necessary. We developed weapons that can disrupt the Harvesters' energy signatures. We built ships that can travel faster and farther than anything else in the galaxy. And we created the Shepherds. What are Shepherds? Vex asked. Elena smiled, and this time it was warm and genuine. We are the Guardians, Lieutenant. Humans who have undergone additional enhancements to serve as Earth's protectors. We live longer, think faster, and can interface directly with our technology. We are the sword and shield of humanity, and there are 10 million of us spread across this planet and our colonies. Colonies? Thane's voice was sharp. You said Earth went silent. From known space, yes, Elena confirmed. But we did not limit ourselves to this system. Over the past 500 years, we have established settlements on 47 worlds in unexplored regions. Each one is hidden, self-sufficient, and connected to Earth through the unity. If the harvesters destroy this world, humanity will survive. We have learned from our mistakes. We will never again put all of our hope in one place. Zorak felt the weight of revelation pressing down on him. His people, his empire, had been so confident in their dominance. They believed they knew the galaxy, controlled it, owned it. But all this time, humans had been building something that dwarfed the Kryn in scope and ambition. Why are you telling us this? Zorak asked. Why reveal yourselves now? Elena's expression became serious. Because the timeline has changed. The harvesters are accelerating. Our calculations show they will arrive in 200 years, not 500. We need allies, Captain. We need every civilization in the galaxy to prepare for what is coming. And we need them to do it now. She walked closer to the Kryn team, her golden eyes meeting Zorak's. You came here expecting to find ruins and claim an empty world for your empire. Instead, you found us. Now you have a choice to make. You can return to your people and tell them the truth. You can warn the Kryn Empire and help us prepare the galaxy for the fight ahead. Or you can report that Earth is hostile and dangerous, and your leaders will send a war fleet to destroy us before we become a threat. And if they choose war? Thane asked, his hand resting on his weapon. Elena's smile was sad but resolute. Then we will defend ourselves, Commander. We have spent 500 years preparing to fight entities that consume stars. We can certainly defend against a conventional military force, even one as formidable as the Kryn Empire. But that fight would weaken both our species and leave us vulnerable when the real threat arrives. We would all lose. Zorak looked at his team. Thane was tense and suspicious, ready to fight at the slightest provocation. Vex was fascinated and terrified in equal measure, her scientific mind racing to comprehend everything they had learned. Kree looked small and overwhelmed, a young officer confronted with truths that shattered her understanding of the galaxy. He thought about the Kryn Empire, its pride and power. He thought about the wars they had fought, the species they had conquered or destroyed. And he thought about what Elena had shown them, an enemy that made all those conflicts meaningless, a threat that would consume everything if left unchecked. You said some humans chose not to join the Unity, Zorak said carefully. Where are they? Elena gestured, and the screens showed remote settlements scattered across Earth. Small communities living in traditional ways, separate from the connected cities. They live in peace, in lands we have set aside for them. We protect them, provide for them when needed, but we do not force them to join us. Freedom of choice is one of the principles we refuse to surrender, even when connected. And those who join, Vex asked, can they leave the Unity if they choose? Yes, Elena answered. It is rare, but some do disconnect. They retain the memories and knowledge they gained while connected, but they lose the active link. We do not hold anyone against their will. Thane made a sound deep in his throat, not quite convinced but less hostile than before. Zorak understood his commander's struggle. Everything they had been taught said that species were either strong or weak, predators or prey, conquerors or conquered. But humanity had found a third path, one that existed outside the traditional hierarchies of power. I need time to think, Zorak said finally. This is beyond my authority to decide. I must consult with my superiors. Elena nodded understanding. Of course. But while you consider your options, would you like to see more? We have defenses, weapons, ships that might interest your military minds. Understanding our capabilities might help you make a more informed decision. It was a calculated offer, Zorak realized. Show the Kryn enough to make them respect humanity's power, but not so much that they felt threatened. Make them see humans as potential allies rather than threats or victims. Clever. Show us, Zorak agreed. They spent the next hours touring facilities that should not exist. Shipyards hidden in asteroid belts where vessels grew from seeds like plants, their hulls living organisms that could repair themselves. Weapon platforms that harnessed the planet's magnetic field to project devastating beams across impossible distances. Defense networks that could detect approaching ships from light years away and respond with coordinated precision that made Kryn military doctrine look primitive. But most impressive were the humans themselves. Zorak watched them work, thousands of individuals moving in perfect harmony without speaking a word. They anticipated each other's needs, complemented each other's strengths, and covered each other's weaknesses with fluid grace. The Unity was not just a communication network, it was a force multiplier that made every human more capable than they could be alone. As the day turned to evening, Elena brought them to a garden at the tower's peak. Real soil, real plants, real rain falling from clouds that existed only within this enclosed space. It was beautiful and impossible and deeply human in its defiance of practicality. "I know what you are feeling," Elena said softly. She stood at the edge of the garden, looking out at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "You are wondering if we are still human at all. You are questioning whether the unity destroyed something essential about what we were." Zorak said nothing, but his silence was confirmation enough. "I remember my first day in the unity," Elena continued. "I was terrified. I thought I would lose myself, become just another voice in an infinite chorus. But when I connected, I discovered something unexpected. I did not become less. I became more. I could still feel my own heartbeat, think my own thoughts, dream my own dreams. But now I could also feel the heartbeat of humanity. I could understand perspectives I had never considered. I could experience joy and sorrow beyond my own life. I remained Elena, but I also became part of something greater." She turned to face the Kryn captain. "That is what the unity gave us, Captain Zorak. Not conformity, but connection. Not the death of individuality, but the enhancement of it. We are still human. We still laugh and cry, love and hate, create and destroy. But now we do it together, with purpose and understanding. That is why we can face the harvesters. That is why we believe we can win." Zorak looked at this woman, this shepherd, this representative of a species that had rewritten the rules of existence. He thought about his report, about the words he would use to describe what he had found. And he realized that no report could capture the truth of this place. Words would fail. Data would be insufficient. His superiors would read his findings and not understand, could not understand, what humanity had become. "If we help you," Zorak said slowly, "if the Kryn Empire agrees to prepare for this threat, what would you need from us?" Elena's smile lit up the garden. "Honestly? We need your military experience, your strategic thinking, your resources. The Kryn have fought and won 1,000 wars. You know tactics and logistics in ways we are still learning. Together, we might have a chance. Divided, we will all fall to the darkness. And in return? We share our technology, our knowledge, our unity itself for those who wish to join. We fight together as equals, not as conquerors and conquered. And when the harvesters come, we stand united as one galaxy against the void." Thane stepped forward. "You ask for trust between species that have never been allies. The Kryn do not trust easily." "Neither did we," Elena replied. "But we learned that trust is not given, it is built. So let us build it, Commander. One day, one choice, one shared purpose at a time." Zorak looked at his team, at the city below, at the stars above. He thought about the harvesters consuming worlds in the darkness. And he thought about the choice that would define not just his career, but potentially the future of all life in the galaxy. "I will return to my ship," he said finally. "I will send my report to the Empire. But I will also recommend that they send diplomats and scientists, not soldiers. I will tell them that humanity is not a threat to be eliminated but a potential ally against a greater enemy." Elena extended her hand in the old human gesture of greeting and agreement. Zorak looked at it for a long moment, this simple offer of connection between species. Then he reached out and clasped her hand in his own. "Thank you, Captain," Elena said. "You are giving us hope." "No," Zorak replied, surprising himself with the honesty. "You are giving us hope. The Kryn have built an empire on strength and domination. But perhaps there is another way. Perhaps you humans have found it." As the Kryn team departed the tower and made their way back to their ship, Zorak looked back one last time at the city that grew from the earth like a dream made solid. 500 years ago, humanity had stood at the edge of extinction. Now they stood ready to defend the galaxy itself. The Voidbreaker lifted off into the night sky, carrying with it news that would shake the foundations of the Kryn Empire. Earth was not abandoned. Humanity was not dead. And the galaxy was about to discover that the most dangerous species was not the one that conquered others, but the one that learned to conquer itself. Far below, Elena watched the ship disappear into the stars. Through the unity, she felt the hopes and fears of billions of connected minds, all wondering if the Kryn would choose peace or war, alliance or conflict. But she also felt something else, determination. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. They had died and been reborn. They had transformed themselves from a divided species into a unified force. And they would not stop now, not when the darkness was coming, not when the galaxy needed them most. The garden where she stood bloomed with flowers that had been extinct for centuries, brought back through careful gene work and patient cultivation. It was a symbol of humanity's refusal to accept loss, their insistence on healing what had been broken, their commitment to life even in the face of death. Elena smiled as she touched one of the flowers, feeling through the unity the touch of 10 billion other hands reaching out with her. They had evolved not through genetics alone, but through choice. They had become something new while remaining something ancient. They were the shepherds, the gardeners, the inheritors of Earth. And they were ready for whatever came next.